Welcome to Figuring Out Families by Magellan Media, where we help make families the best they can be. We're pleased to be joined by marriage counsellor and family expert Derek Boylen for what we are calling the Focus Sessions, aimed at helping families with relationship issues. Together with Derek, over a number of these sessions, we will explore the most pressing issues facing families today. We hope you enjoy and find this series valuable. We're back for another focus session with Derek Boylen. This time it's faith and spirituality. Hi there, Derek.
Hi, David.
It's also a very big welcome to your wife, Karen. We're talking to Karen for the first time. Hi there, Karen.
Hi, how are you, David?
Very well, thank you. Now, we've heard a lot about you over the past few weeks, your ability to manage the running and daily organisation of a large family, very impressive with 8 children. And you also homeschool your children, I believe. How do you do it, and how do you, any tips for parents managing the pressures of raising such a big family?
I don't know if there's any tips really. It's a bit of chaos and a bit of letting go of a lot of things and a lot of grace from God. So, yeah, that's, I think, how we cope.
Yeah, oh, fair enough too. Now, over a number of sessions, Derek's told us a lot about you. So here's your opportunity to respond, and you can respond any way you like. Tell us about Derek, the husband and the father.
That's a loaded question.
Very loaded.
He's an awesome husband and father. I'm very happy with him. I chose well. He does have a few little quirks. He likes to sing songs, much to the family's torture.
Right.
So, yeah, he enjoys singing songs to us, but which brings a great sense of humour and joy to our household, but sometimes a few groans as well.
Yeah, we've discussed that a few times in recent weeks about families and having fun and all that sort of thing.
Yes. He's pretty awesome. We're pretty fortunate and blessed to have him.
Oh, great response. I'm sure that'll keep the marriage going for many years, so well done.
I'll give you $50 later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, as I introed, this focus session is on faith and spirituality. Now, organised religion is on the nose with many people these days, especially younger people. However, many would also call themselves spiritual in some way. Would you agree, both of you, that spirituality and faith give meaning and purpose to life?
Yeah, I definitely think it does, David. Spirituality gives a lot of people a deep sense of purpose. It gives them a sense of meaning. And I think the reality is probably Karen and I wouldn't be here today, talking to you and sharing with you about, our experience and our learnings about marriage and family life if it hadn't been a big part of our journey as well. In fact, it's interesting, just reflecting on your question, we actually think that there's a real change happening in our community as well, because we especially see it in our young people today. And there's quite a number of young adults who, come and visit us. Even just this past week on Thursday and Friday night, we had young couples coming to our home to talk about married life and coming from a faith perspective, which is sort of exciting.
We've also spoken a lot at youth groups and about marriage and faith and family as well. And I know that in Perth we had the big ACYF conference just in December last year, which was a real high, I think, for the young people in the whole of Australia. It was a real boost and a real blessing to see so many young people come together for faith as a purpose. So, yeah.
Yeah, a few months later, and they would have had to have cancelled with coronavirus. So it's all in the timing, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. But it was a hopeful thing at the Australian Catholic Youth Festival to see so many young people, and I think there is a change among our young people. They are curious. They do want to. They're looking for answers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's natural, isn't it? It's human life. People are like that. People are always looking for answers, and they'll keep searching probably all their life in many respects.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
Now, faith is about believing rather than seeing, and doubting Thomas springs to mind. Do you think there's a problem with people today that too many of them are naturally sceptical and demand evidence before they'll accept and believe?
Yeah, I think it is hard to engage in issues to do with faith and spirituality. I guess spirituality is naturally about things of the spirit. It's not about often things that we're sort of accustomed to in day-to-day life. And I think if people haven't had a background or an experience growing up of faith in their lives, starting out can be quite difficult for people that try to work out how to engage in it. But I think it is difficult, but I think it's worth leaning into and exploring.
I think today we're really taught at schools and things to analyse and to be scientific in the way that we think of things, but I don't think faith is necessarily taught as such. It's more caught, and so I think a really pertinent question is how do we help our children catch faith rather than necessarily teach them about the hows and
Yeah.
whys and things like that about faith.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, especially a few hundred years back, there was a belief that science and religion couldn't coexist. It was one or the other. But of course, we've gone beyond that, and both can coexist quite well.
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes people have this idea that that faith is sort of unreasonable, but we don't have we have a reasoned faith. There's a lot of thought and a lot of logic that's gone into, I guess, discernment about how do we make sense of God, how do we make sense of the spiritual, and I think people who decide to really engage in that discover something quite deep and profound and new.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Karen and Derek, do you think people lose out if they're not spiritual in any sense?
I think so. I think, in a way, everyone is spiritual, but not everyone has discovered that side of who they are yet. And I guess, if we don't explore that, then we're losing out because there's a whole aspect, a whole dimension to who we are as people that is yet to be discovered, and that's really worth exploring.
I think for me personally, I would find it hard to live and make meanings, particularly of the tough times in my life without a spirituality and a faith. The ups and downs of life would be hard to reason, to understand, and to know why it's happening. And that faith and spirituality can be a real source of strength for me personally to get me through those times. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's an aspect of losing out if we are not spiritual and have faith.
Yeah, no, exactly right. What can spirituality and faith bring to a family? And as we've discussed a few times in recent sessions, you have a big family, 8 children. What do you think it brings to your family and to families generally?
Yeah, I think there's actually a whole range of things that it brings to a family, not just an individual to explore. And I guess the first is that for us as a family, it helps to unite us. It helps to put us on the same page in a lot of different areas of our life. So it gives us a common sense of purpose and a common direction in life as a family. It also gives us a common language, a way of talking about, I guess, not just about things to do with God and spirituality, but on a whole range of different levels. It gives us a language for talking about social justice in the world and how we respond to people who are struggling and needing support. It gives us a language for talking about the dignity of the human person and the value of a human person, and how do we value people at all different stages of life and in different sort of circumstances.
For me, it's crucial. It's our anchor. It really helps to anchor everything we do. It's our central point. So it anchors our decisions, the reasons why we do things, how we discipline our children, how we teach them, the whys behind all that. And it also holds us to moral standards and values that we can base everything off. So it's a real central point of our family. Like an anchor, it holds us down and keeps us grounded.
That's actually a very good word, Karen. Anchor. I think that sort of sums it up really well. That if you pass on those sort of values and share them with your children, and the family unit can and will be stronger for it.
Absolutely. I think, without it, I kind of feel like we'd be floating, and whatever trends kind of happen in society, you kind of end up floating towards different things all the time, and there's nothing really holding you strong and consistent.
Yeah.
I think there's that saying that if you don't stand for anything, then you'll fall for everything. And I guess in today's day and age, I think there's this idea that sometimes that the most modern thinking is the best thinking. And yet we know that, I guess, through all of human history, there are enduring kind of values, respect for another, honesty, loyalty, those sorts of things are really important values. And our faith helps to keep us anchored to those things.
Yeah, and if you want to extend the metaphor, as Karen said, like a ship or a boat on the ocean without an anchor, just floating aimlessly and not going anywhere.
Definitely.
Time for a short break.
Hi, Brendan from Magellan Media here. Every couple's pregnancy journey is different, especially for first-time parents. From conception to the miracle of growing life, to birth and beyond, there is nothing more precious than God's gift of a newborn baby. Becoming Parents, a Spiritual Journey is a new series of 4 magazines produced by Magellan Media that accompanies expecting parents through their pregnancy to help strengthen their emotional and spiritual bonds. Visit becomingparents.org.au to find out more about this great gift.
Welcome back. Now, how does someone experience faith and spirituality each day? I mean, you can talk about your own personal experiences, but also generally.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we think about the experience of faith and spirituality, sometimes we can maybe be sort of led astray when we think about it in terms of the, deep mystical experiences. But really, I guess the place where we're called to experience faith and spirituality in family life is most often to be found actually in the little ordinariness of day-to-day life. It's in discovering, I guess, from our family members that we are lovable, that we are forgivable. I know, I'm certainly not despite Karen's affirming words at the beginning, I know I am not the perfect man, and I make a lot of mistakes, and sometimes I'm hungry and tired and cranky and irritable, and I've had a long day, and it's Karen by her, her patience and my children and their love for me and their ability to forgive that. I guess in a way they are teaching me about God's love. They're helping me to discover that I'm lovable and that I'm forgivable. I think it's also about rediscovering a key element, I think, of how we live it and how we can experience it in day-to-day life in our families is by rediscovering how to behold one another as we did when we first fell in love with them.
Yeah.
We think about the very beginning of a relationship when we first started going out. We hung off every word they said and the smell of their hair and the warmth of their touch. We could spend all day and never get bored of spending time with them. And I guess I think part of the spirituality is rediscovering, the mystery of who this person is, someone who is loved infinitely by God. But the same with our children. I think we can all probably maybe remember the first experience of holding our child in our arms, and their tiny little fingernails and hands and feet, and you could just gaze at an infant for hours and
Sure.
wonder about the mystery of who they are. And I think part of experiencing faith and spirituality each day is about trying to rediscover those things in who these people are, the mystery of who this person is for me now.
I think it's a bit harder as the newborn grows up and becomes a toddler who touches everything, and then eventually a teenager. I think something that came to prayer to me a while ago was an analogy of a teenager being like a butterfly, that there's a transformation going on, that they start off as these cute little fluffy caterpillars, that you can look at, and they're kind of chubby and cute, and they kind of crawl around, and they kind of go into a cocoon, and then that very much happens with our children. They kind of go into themselves and trying to discover who they are in this world and what they're doing, and now and then you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse. There's a wing that pokes out of the cocoon, and you think, oh wow, there's actually something going on there. There's something happening that's beautiful, but sometimes you're just looking at the cocoon wondering, oh, what's going on, like who knows. But still being called to behold them in that transformation, even when you can't see the beauty that's going to emerge. And eventually, maybe when they're in their late teens, maybe when they're 20s, maybe in their 30s, who knows, depending on the child, you finally see this beautiful adult that emerges, that's taken flight and that's doing amazing things in this world. And I think, beholding teenagers is really important. I think they need someone on their side to really see God in them when they find it hard to see it themselves, almost. Another way of experiencing faith and spirituality for me personally is really being thankful for the little things God blesses us with each day. We're so blessed in Australia. We can count so many blessings every single day, that just really opening our eyes and being aware of just, the wind blowing through the trees, just really simple things, our children speaking nicely rather than yelling. just just really simple little things that God blesses us with. And it's kind of, I see it as God kind of saying, I love you every time that I see something to be thankful for. Yeah, also in a family, I think celebrating our joy and our events and things is really important. I think it's actually quite spiritual to really celebrate with each other and celebrate people's successes and birthdays and things like that, even though, we're having fun and maybe having a glass of wine or something, that actually there's a spirituality in that joy. It's God being present in that joy amongst families.
Yeah, they are important family rituals, and spirituality is caught up in all of that.
Yeah, it sort of makes me often think of Celtic spirituality, and in ancient Celtic spirituality, Christian tradition, they really had a way of celebrating every aspect of the day. There was a prayer for when it was raining, and there was a prayer for when it was sunny, and there was a prayer for when they were lighting the fire, the heath in the morning, and a prayer for doing the dishes. And they just sort of, I guess, made made God a part of just the everydayness of life, and recognizing that somehow God is here, is a part of this in whatever is sort of happening throughout the day. And I think just being open to that is an important part of the way that we experience each day, faith and spirituality.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think, unfortunately, generally, families have lost a bit of that. Well, I mean, we used to, when I was growing up, we'd always thank God for the food we're eating, that sort of thing. And you don't find that as much these days. And we should be thankful. As Karen said, we're very blessed, very lucky to live in a country like Australia.
Oh, so important.
I just think you look around us, even with the COVID situation and what's happening in the rest of the world, we are just so blessed to be where we are and, in what we're doing and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah. What other family rituals, can I put it that way, do you have with your children, Derek and Karen?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of things I think that families can do together to be more spiritual. And I guess the first thing is to work on our own personal prayer life. And we can just do that, very simply by just starting to talk to God more during the day. Just, God, I need some help here. I'm struggling a bit, or thanks God for this good situation. And then developing, I guess, family prayer time. And I guess our advice with that is, for us as a big family, it can be really tricky to do family prayer and try to get everybody in the one place at the same time to pray. And so I guess what we've found is the real focus for us that ensures that we sort of just have time together as a family to call to mind God's grace is just to do it before meals. So to say grace before meals, it's a tradition that has been in many Catholic families over generations. And it doesn't have to be very complex. It can just simply be, God, thanks for the food. And but just by just saying grace before meals, we just keep the doorway just open. Sometimes it's hard for families to know, how do we have these conversations? How do we start a conversation? And sometimes just by saying grace before meals, we just keep the window just open to be able to allow God to sort of be a part of things. I guess the other thing that I think that families can do is to really use a lot more God language. Allow God to be a part of the language of day-to-day life, and to think about, what do we really want to pass on to our children? Children ask all sorts of, especially young children, awkward, interesting questions. Where do babies come from, and what happened to the dog, and why don't we see grandma so much these days? And and they're trying to make sense out of the meaning of life and the whole lifespan of life. And I think if we just sort of think as parents about what are some of the things that we'd like to pass on to our children about the deeper importance and meaning of life, and finding the time to, I guess, answer those questions, more intentionally, I think can certainly help.
We have a lot of things around our house as well that remind us of our faith. So we've got statues, and we've got holy images, and we've got candles, and even just having plants around the house, just reminding us of God's goodness and beauty in our lives. Having little scripture quotes sometimes, like just surrounding them with articles of faith, if you like, and beauty, and just letting that call them constantly into something deeper, and just having an environment where that's full and abundant. We also try to look for God in each other and acknowledge it. So even in our discipline, we'll say, well, what's God calling to you to in this? Like, what should you have done? That what would Jesus do, in a sense? We try not to use those. They're a bit cliche, but those actual words. But we're calling them to really acknowledge in themselves how they can be better, and model themselves on Christ. So, but also to look for God in each other, like to see that someone else is doing something good, and that's actually God working through them. That's actually Christ in them. That's
that's wonderful.
Mm.
Even for people who are religious, the faith journey can be a bumpy road. I think we all know people who've been down the bumpy road. Do you have any tips for anyone who's struggling in this regard?
Yeah, this is a really tough one, and it's a really important question, David. I guess for all of faith, it's the problem of suffering. If God really loves us and God really cares about us and wants good things for us, why do we suffer? Why do we struggle in life? And I guess we need to come to an appreciation that this is actually really normal. The ups and downs of life are a normal part of life, and that not even God is immune to it either. We look at Jesus, and even Jesus suffered. And so in a way, God really gets it. Because of this, God can actually really relate to our pain, and he feels our pain as well.
I think we need to remember that we're on a journey. We're not at the destination yet, that this is still a journey. And like any journey, sometimes we take the wrong turn, or sometimes we come to a gravel road and we have to work our way around it, or that it's okay to have those ups and downs and to take the wrong turn now and then, that as long as we get back on track, and that faith can bring us a lot of comfort at these times, knowing that it's okay and God's merciful and forgiving, that we can easily just go back and continue on the road he needs us to be on. And I think it's really important that our kids see us turn to faith in times when times are a bit bumpy for us, that they see us either take up the rosary on those really hard times as a regular thing, or just praying. Even if we pray out loud, like we'll often, if we see other people, an ambulance go by or there's an accident on the road, that we'll actually just say a quick little prayer, Lord, just be with those people, be with the paramedics and with the people who are hurt, and help them to find comfort in you. Something really simple that they can hear it in their day-to-day life, us turning to faith to comfort us.
Yeah, that's very well said, and quite right too. Do you think if people belong to a church group, or being around people with similar mind, makes it easier to have a faith and a spiritual side?
Definitely. I think community is actually really, really important, and that's what God wants too. There's those beautiful sort of famous words of Christ in John's Gospel where he says, Father, I pray that they may be one as you and I are one. I think sometimes when we think about faith, we kind of have this idea that the end goal is our own personal perfection. But that's not really the end goal. The really end goal is our divine union with God and with each other. That God's plan is for us to be closer to one another as a family, and in our relationships, and with everybody else who's on this journey as well. And so the only way to do that is as part of a community, as part of I guess a group of people who are striving to somehow grow in faith and come to know God's plan for them.
Right.
I think on a real practical level, it's really hard on our own, that we actually need people around us who've got passion and who keep us afloat when we don't feel like we're being afloat, that really urge us on in our faith and in what we believe, to surround our children with other children and other adults who really support us and them in their values. I think we live a very countercultural almost life in some ways in being Christian, and that the kids and us need people around us to really make that feel less of a burden in some ways, that that it gives us real strength to have people around us journeying the same sort of journey.
Yeah, absolutely. You certainly find strength if you are around people who have a similar mindset or share similar values. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, what steps can couples and families take if they're interested in exploring faith and spirituality? Because some people don't have a religious upbringing as such, but they might become spiritual later in life.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that that people can do if they want to explore that, and also, I guess, parishes and organisations that would be are more than happy to support them in that journey as well. Um, and so, I guess a first sort of step is simply to talk to someone in their local parish. If they contact their parish secretary or their parish priest, and just simply ask, what's happening in your parish that we can sort of tap into. It's This is something new for us, and we're wanting to. Sort of explore and discover this part of our life and family life more. There are lots of really good programs that are frequently run in different parishes. So there's things like the Alpha course that's run in many parishes, and just a basic introduction to faith and spirituality that's often run by parishes. And you can go along over a series of weeks and then just, I guess, be taken a little bit deeper in your faith journey. There's RCIA, which is the Rite of Christian Initiation for adults. And so that's a program which is the pathway into the Catholic faith for those who want to learn more about the church and what it teaches. But you can go along just because you'd like to know more, you'd like to learn more. It's not necessarily that you want to join the Catholic Church, but you'd like to just come to know a bit more about what the church teaches and believes. And nearly every parish will run an RCIA program, and being a part of that, joining into that is a good way of doing it.
I think you can also send your teenagers to a youth group or a retreat or a camp that parishes run every now and then. I really believe it takes a village, particularly when they come to be teenagers. It takes more than just their parents to instill faith and instill values in them. I think they need to hear it from other people sometimes, that it just goes over their heads when it's their parents telling them all the time.
Yeah.
And I think youth group is great for that. There's mentors involved and other adults and things like that involved who speak into your children's lives quite a bit. I know it's been invaluable for us. There's also, if you've got younger children, there's also parish playgroups that run, or the schools often run playgroups and things like that you could become part of. On a home front, though, I think exploring, we do a lot of exploring the liturgical seasons as a family. So we'll journey through Lent together as a family by putting altar cloths in purple on things, and really entering into the Stations of the Cross and things like that. But really just travelling through Lent and then Advent and into Christmas and then into ordinary time, and really making your life at home a rhythm in concurrently with the church's liturgical seasons. And you can always Google liturgical seasons and have a look and see what there is to offer. There's so much that you can do at home. We went to Milan in 2012 to the World Meeting of Families, and one of the things that we really took out of there was how to really keep holy the Sabbath. And I think it's something we're still kind of working through years later, that it's not just about going to Mass on a Sunday. It's about really cultivating a Sabbath for your family to really rest in God during the Sunday, to really take time out from the everyday and, the busyness of life that we so often encounter, and really just rest and find peace with God and in each other, and find joy, and really make it something that stands apart from every other day of the week. And that's really simple. That might just be going out on a picnic with your kids for afternoon tea, and or just spending time playing a game. It doesn't have to be really complex. It could just be something really simple that develops into a real culture of spending time together and in closeness with God, because we will find God in each other.
Making Sunday a day which is just a different kind of a day. It's just not the ordinariness of everything we do on other days. Is really important. I guess there's also faith-based marriage enrichment programs as well for couples who want to just grow in their own relationship, but to do it in a context of faith that might help and support their relationship. And there are some great programs out there that I couldn't recommend more highly for couples. Things like Marriage Encounter and Smart Loving for couples who've been married for a while and want to reconnect with one another and and grow in their relationship, and they cover lots of different areas of relationships. But then there's also programs like Ministry to the Newly Married, which are for couples in the very early stages of their married life and who want to find, more support for their relationship as they begin their young families, and want to, get to know other strong couples who've had, a good experience of raising their own families and working through difficult challenges, and to grow and learn from the experience of these couples.
So Karen and Derek, does faith and spirituality enhance or really strengthen a couple's relationship?
Look, I think it can make a huge difference to a couple's relationship. I guess, one of the ways I think of it is that when couples are struggling in their relationships, it's because their partner isn't perfect, right? I guess in our head, if my partner was more perfect, I'd be happier. If they were more patient, if they were more loving, if they were more attuned to my needs, and I guess in a way we'll always be disappointed because there's no perfect people in the world. However, I guess for me, my journey, as I've sort of got closer to God and I find perfection in God, then it means that I actually don't necessarily need that from Karen. I can actually be more patient with her. I can be more loving and more attuned to her needs. And it's funny that as we are able to be more that way with our partners, then of course they long to be more for us. That they long to, I guess, honor the love that we have for them, and they want to do better. I know that's how I feel when Karen's patient with me, forgiving. I want to be more of the man that she, I guess, longs for. That as we sort of somehow lean into faith, it does something in who we are in relationship to one another as well.
Sure.
I think it absolutely gives us, it helps me to be more giving of myself. I think, like people say marriage is 50-50, but actually it's 100-100. It's giving yourself 100%. And I think faith for me and faith in our relationship actually helps me to give that 100% because Jesus did, actually I'm called to give that 100%, and my faith gives meaning around that rather than it's all just me giving. It's actually my faith giving meaning around that giving, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, terrific. And finally, because we're nearly at an end, but just encapsulating some of the main points from this session.
Yeah, look, I think that faith and spirituality for families is often an area that's unexplored, and yet it has so much to offer couples and families in terms of bringing them closer to one another, in terms of anchoring their lives and giving them purpose and meaning. And it's difficult to do on your own. That having a faith community around you, whether it's a parish or another faith community, often people can find it within the Catholic school system. Is really, really important to journey with other people who will support you and encourage you and help you to discover new aspects of what it means to live a life that is filled with spirituality and faith as well.
I think that our faith journey can really help us through those ups and downs in life, and it's important to realise that they're normal and that our faith is there to give us strength.
Wonderful. That brings us to the end of another session. A very big thank you to Karen for the first time. Great having you on board. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, David.
And Derek, as usual, we'll catch you with the next session coming up.
That'll be terrific. Thanks, David.